Welcome back to the Power 10. We do have one of the more controversial episodes I've ever put to paper to record today. This is the list of the top 10 AWPers right now. And as you know, the power ranking is very recent in terms of its memory. Right now, we're thinking about the last couple months in terms of the top 10 AWPers. And honestly, it's slightly depressing. We're at a point in the scene where at the bottom of the list, you can almost pick players down from tier 2 just because the tier 1 AWPers have been dire besides the top few, and some of the players we will be picking towards the bottom end of this list are actually going to be players we haven't even seen play that many events recently. They might even be new to tier 1 entirely, but realistically, there's not that many good options out there right now. At number 10, we have Hulzerk, a player we haven't actually seen in a little while, but is realistically the only other piece on complexity worth a damn besides Grim, and Grim now made it pretty high on the list last time for riflers. This time for the AWPs, Hulzerk is barely clinging on to life, just at number 10, mostly due to a lack of frequency. We haven't seen a lot of him recently, but when we last saw him, he was playing at a very solid level. The team's been in desperate need of that. They don't have much rifle firepower beyond that Grim entry sort of opening explosive play, and so Hulzerk trading and closing has been critical for them, and I'm glad he's been able to maintain that sort of level for the majority of the events he's played this year. Hulzerk would definitely be higher on the list with more reps, and I think with this major coming up, it would have been a great opportunity to really see him shine. Unfortunately, it seems that Complexity will be playing with Junior. Nothing's been officially confirmed, but until further notice, I guess we do have to have that caveat in mind that potentially he will be missing out on that event, and that's going to be a big shame, a big loss for Complexity, and they probably will struggle to make a deep run without him. It's just the way things go sometimes, but it's unfortunate to have something like this really cast a pall over the major. At number 9, we do have a bit of a hometown hero, a bit of a homer pick in Molodoy, a player that I have been touting. I've been building up his individual ability, his mechanics for a little while, and we saw it all on display on Furia. It's pretty much been the best case scenario for them. They haven't really shifted up parts of his game that I thought were lacking before. They haven't fixed that, coached that out of him, or found another way to use him. For now, he's being used in much the same way he was back on Amcal. He's openings heavy, closing heavy on the T side. CT side can lock down areas by himself. He's left solo, doesn't really play off teammates that often, but goddamn, is he good at just hitting shot after shot after shot. His fragging impact on the AWP is what brings him up to number 9 here. Now, a large part of the reason why he does find himself so high so quickly is because there's not that many other options. If you look at some of the top teams that have been playing recently, the AWPers they fielded, the weaknesses they've had in that position, Molodoy looks incredibly strong relative to those weaknesses, relative to those less confident, less impactful AWPers. Definitely a bit of a controversial pick to have up here, but a player that I really believe in, at least in terms of his ability. We'll just see if he can bring the playstyle to bear, essentially, bring himself more into the team, trade a bit more, play off the pack, play off someone else. I think that'll be critical to making him really take that next step into being a true star AWPer, potentially in the top 5 here. For now, he finds himself at number 9. Let's see how the major goes for him. Woxic is in a slump. That's the only reason he finds himself down here. He's really struggled to maintain his level in the last couple of events, and this year he's had a few events that have been weaker, some have been stronger. He did have a pretty good patch, like Lisbon, Bucharest, those were strong events, but Astana and Dallas really weren't up to snuff, and that's caused Aurora to look a little wanting, look a little weaker. They are an incredibly firepower-dependent team, and that's always going to be the case when they're typically high-firing, impactful, round-winning players isn't quite playing up to his level. And that's really been the case with Woxic of late. He hasn't been quite as clutch on the T side. He's not been able to find as many openings on the CT side. Just not making his presence felt across the map. That's been really wanting recently. So he's taken a nosedive. There are times in this year where he might have even peaked towards top 5. Number 8 right now, and potentially dropping further. As we go into the major, if Aurora don't really shine, that's a lot of it going to be on Woxic. Woxic needs to step up, needs to find some more juice, needs to find a little more presence, and off the back of that, maybe Aurora can make that top 8 run that many have predicted they won't even manage to attain. Some people are convinced this team is not making top 8 at the major. It'd be a huge letdown for them, but honestly, with the way they're playing right now, not out of the realms of possibility. Speaking of players who've climbed too high, too early, we have Wrinkle at number 7. He really has burst into the frame as far as top AWPers right now. This start at PGL Astana was everything you could have hoped for from a young AWPer trying to prove himself, trying to show himself to be of value at this level, trying to show that his playstyle is legitimate, because there's been a big question of Wrinkle is maybe too aggressive, maybe Wrinkle can't play at the top level just because he's willing to take far too many risks, take these really big swing fights, and potentially lose them time and time again. But here with NIP, he really drove them into the playoffs, and even once they reached there, didn't take his foot off the gas, was really impressive against Spirit, despite the team losing. Now, his T-side play is more rifle-oriented than I really would have liked. We didn't see as much AWPing from him, and not as much impact. He was more just trading players out, getting his numbers, actually still putting up pretty impressive statistical performances, just nowhere near the dominating presence he was on CT side, as he was able to just fly around the map, making plays, making multi-kills happen. He really was the dynamo of NIP CT sides. After Shush cooled off and stopped being just a miracle worker on every bomb site hold, they really needed Wrinkle to step up, fill those boots, fill those shoes, find the multis, and he did. So T-side not quite up to snuff in terms of the AWP play, but he's been a fantastic rifler. CT play, AWP domination. Absolutely loved seeing it. Wrinkle's been on the rise for quite a while now. And if you've been paying attention, you'll have known that something like this was very likely in his first event, and my lord was I impressed. I can't wait to see more of him. It's a shame he's not at the major, but next season, watch out. Wrinkle is coming for that top 5. Na'Vi have been dreadful this year. Point blank, just dreadful. Relative to last year, yes, but also just relative to their Na'Vi. They haven't made a grand final. They've barely cracked any top 4s. I think, yeah, Katowice, Blast Bounty, and since then, nothing. Only just scraping playoffs at most events, and then at others missing them entirely. Wonderful has been a part of that. He's not been strong enough. He's had a few fine events. He's had one terrible event, but then recently had a strangely good event at Astana. And I've said it multiple times this year, it seems like his rifling has carried him through some of these tough games for Na'Vi. When I was looking back through Astana, and his AWP was actually on form. He was finding a lot more picks, missing a lot fewer shots, which has been a key part of the problem. He's holding space, holding key lines, then whiffing the shots. That's losing Na'Vi entire T-side rounds. Now we're seeing a little more consistency. It's a marked improvement over the first sort of 3-4 events of the year. A massive improvement on Lisbon. We don't have to talk about that event anymore if he doesn't want to, because Lord, that was horrible. But Astana, yeah, a return to form and something that maintains him at this position. Although, realistically, if he keeps playing this way, even though Astana was an improvement, it's not super impactful. And some of the guys below him are primed to take that spot. Molodoy, Wrinkle, finally getting their shot. Holzerk, if he can play more tier 1 events. These guys are all ready to take over Wonderful's spot at number 6, just because he hasn't been impressive enough this year. We've seen the talent before. We saw it at times last year, but not anything especially impressive. But we really have seen it in the past on teams like Spirit, on teams like Sprout, where he could take over games single-handedly. He never really does that on Na'Vi, partially due to playstyle, but at least we're seeing some of his consistency, his ability to just hit the shots coming back. Cracking the top 5 and a bit of a shock, but hell, his Dallas run deserves this. 9-10 has finally turned things around a little bit. Not entirely, we still had a far too large a streak of events where he just didn't quite show up. He didn't quite seize the game by the scruff of the neck and really have the sort of impact he had in Dallas. On CT sides in Dallas, he was using the AWP almost exclusively. That's where he got almost all his kills. He was finding a lot of opening frags, especially, quite importantly. He was doing everything right in Dallas. I really think that in Dallas we saw the ceiling that a lot of people see in 9-10 that I've struggled personally to grasp. Like, I've really thought that 9-10 was a okay AWPer, but realistically, eventually, Mongols could do better. You'd find another Mongolian player you could bring in, maybe upgrade 9-10, because he just wasn't good enough. This event was a showcase. This was a promo piece for the movie you're supposed to see every time 9-10 is on the server with this Mongols roster. Having him assert his dominance on the CT side, especially, we saw it against Maus. This is a team they would have usually collapsed against and just been smashed by. 13-11, 13-11, a lot of it driven by his CT play. I think this is the awakening of 9-10 that I've asked for a while. I've brought this up on shows where I just don't think he's shown us his full potential and that we're still left wanting more at the end of the day. Finally, he has an event that proves he's got that in him. He's got that dog and he can actually deliver. So 9-10, a deserved bump up to number 5. At least we haven't done a sniper Power 10 in a long time, but there's no way if we'd done it 3 months ago, 2 months ago, I would have had him above number 9. So 9-10, huge performances, great showings in playoffs, especially in Dallas, to get him here. Let's see what Austin holds. Mongols are still a dark horse to go and win that event. I know it hasn't looked likely recently, and they really are a team that collapses quite often, has these mental weaknesses on the big stage, especially against strong teams. We've seen some of that start to get shaken off, I think, just a little bit in Dallas and in a couple of other events. This team looks ready. Be afraid. In at number 4, and I genuinely wish I could put him higher. You have no idea how much I enjoy watching this man play on the CT side with his big green. But Torji, unfortunately, can't quite crack it. The podium spots are locked up by players who have been absolutely absurd this year statistically. Torji hasn't quite been that. He had an absurd Dallas run, and it feels like, honestly, with this Dallas run, with all these AWPers popping off, finding all this impact, feels like the AWP has revived. The meta might be shifting, and AWPing might be coming back into vogue in a big way, except for one man, who clearly just doesn't give a shit. But Torji is an AWP abuser in the best possible way. He loves to use it and uses it so well. The dynamic change-ups in his play, the pushes he goes for, the angles he tries to hold. He tries to make things happen with the AWP in the ways an AWPer should. You're using the most powerful gun in the game. You can't just be holding passively, waiting for retakes, throwing utility all game. And especially on the CT side, if you're not making the game happen, taking the game to the T side, shutting them down and locking them out of areas, you might as well have a rifle. You might as well not be an AWPer. Torji's done everything right, and I've absolutely loved what I've seen from him so far this year, but also specifically the last couple of events. He's really come alive on the AWP. He had a few runs, I think, earlier in the year when Maus kind of signed Spinks and they started looking a little stronger. Torji's rifling kind of peaked. He kind of had this moment where he was really strong on the rifle. But overall, over the course of this year, the moments when he's been best, the moments when Maus have now started to look like a version of themselves that's sustainable, he's been on the big green and he's been impactful. He's been dominating teams. Shiro is not everyone's cup of tea. He really isn't. And for me, at times, I do think he has been too passive, and that Spirit have lacked a second playmaker who will go and make the play rather than just try to make something happen if it's possible. Maybe, we'll see. You know, they've got a little too much of that on their team between Zontix and Shiro at times in the past, but recently Shiro has pushed the aggression up a notch, and over the course of the entire year, you really can't fault him for his play. His worst event has been a 0.75 KPR. Like, in terms of fragging, that's absurd. Most years that'd be enough to get you, let alone top 3, but top 2 in the world, potentially. Like, he's been that level in terms of his kill rate and in terms of his rating. Now, he doesn't, in reality, actually touch the top 3 in terms of players in the world right now because they are on a different level. But he's closer to m0NESY in terms of his overall standings right now than probably anyone was last year. And so the top 3 now feels almost attainable for him if he can maintain the level he showed us in Astana, but also actually towards the start of the year at Blast Bounty. He was a ridiculously high-rated player at Bounty. He was really strong at this last PGL event. Coming into the major, this is exactly what Spirit want to see. Sure, it'd be great if they had Zontix, Magix, fragging a little stronger, maybe proving that there's no need for a change on this team, but having Shiro potentially playing at a superstar level makes them a whole different threat. It's no longer just Donk. It's no longer one-sided. They have this closing threat alongside him that really warps how you have to play rounds. There is no easy round. There's no easy win if you're playing against a Spirit with Donk on playing the way he has been and Shiro going for clutches and winning them. All right, it's time to get controversial because this is a tier list of AWPers. And one of these 2 players at the top 2 basically isn't an AWPer anymore. He's some kind of hybrid. Now, I've called him the perfect hybrid, and I do think he's currently, for my money, the best player in the world. And if I had to make a list right now of this season, the top 10 players, or the top 20 as we do for HLTV at the end of the year, ZywOo would be number 1. Easily. But here's the problem. This is just for AWPing. And with the AWP in his hands, he's not been as good as the guy I have at number 1. Over the course of these last couple months, he's not been as good. Add to that the fact that he's barely using the AWP. I'm talking about a player who is supposed to be a primary AWPer, picking up the AWP in buy rounds at a sub 45% rate. This is a guy who's almost disqualifying himself. He's choosing to take himself out of contention for number 1 AWPer in the world. And it's working in terms of being the best player possible. ZywOo's ability on a rifle is almost unmatched. There's only one player realistically better than him on a rifle in the world right now. Obviously, Donk. We saw that last week. I brought ZywOo up even last week as an honorable mention. That's how much he's been on point on the rifles this year and how much he's been choosing to use them. If you go look at his numbers for the last 3 months, not only is he using the AWP less in buy rounds than other AWPers, his overall kill count is higher with an AK-47. That just blows my mind. And I know a lot of people are going to push back, and I know that rifling isn't it's a non-zero aspect of AWPing, but it's not the key. It's not what makes you a great AWPer. And ZywOo has really struggled to be as impactful on his AWP since switching to this sort of rifle-heavy preference. I still think he's a great AWPer. I still have him at number 2 for crying out loud, despite his neglect of the big green. But realistically, ZywOo's the best player in the world because he is the second best rifler and the second best AWPer. And honestly, probably one of the most intelligent players in the game in terms of his understanding of his own strengths, what his opponents are going to do, how to best play off his teammates. ZywOo's doing everything at such a high level right now. He is this weird blend of Nico, Kenny, and Zipex, to use a bunch of retro references, where in the clutch, I believe in him. If he wants to go get an opening, he will get it, no matter the gun. He can make a multi-kill happen in any situation with any weapon. But in terms of who is the best with the AWP right now, there's one guy who's playing at an insane level with the big green, and I don't think I can deny his place upon the top of this list. Number 1 has been the best AWP player of the last 2 months, 2 events, whatever you want to call it, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. m0NESY doesn't suck with the rifle. He's actually pretty strong on the rifle. But his AWPing is what carries him in gun rounds. He has a usage percentage of 60% in actual buy rounds with the AWP. He has a rating of ridiculous, something like 1.6 when he has the AWP in buy versus buy rounds. Nobody is as impactful with the AWP right now as m0NESY. He's been outstanding, and it's a return to the m0NESY of old. He's hitting crazy flicks. He's finding openings. He's making trades happen. He's winning clutches. He's doing literally everything. That's been m0NESY's strength in the past, his ability to hit every shot with the AWP, and we're finally seeing it really come out again. It has to be said that the last couple of events have ended rather poorly for Falcons, with losses that seemed like they should have been wins. And m0NESY, especially the final sort of closing moments of that last series against Vitality, he could have done more. That Inferno second half CT side, he just wasn't as present. He wasn't his typical self. But he has been triumphant, dominating in victories against MOUZ, victories against Spirit, other top 4 teams that we consider to be the elite teams, the ones contending for the big titles, the ones who have the chance, the talent, the opportunity to actually upset Vitality going into this major. m0NESY has been outstanding, and I think it's ridiculous to try and take this away from him just because his rifling has not been as strong as ZywOo, just because he hasn't been as dependent on a rifle as ZywOo. I think that is silly and a mistake. The best AWPer right now is the player playing with the AWP the most and playing the best when he has it, and that is m0NESY. Now, this will annoy some people, but as made the case 100 times now, I do think ZywOo is the best player in the world, and I actually think m0NESY is in a slightly far off third, behind Donk as well. This is just the reality of his situation right now. But as far as AWPers, specifically AWPers, m0NESY is number 1. But right, if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment telling me your thoughts. I know this is going to be controversial. I know people are going to be pissed off. But realistically, I don't think this is unreasonable to say the best AWPer in the world is not the best player in the world. The best player in the world is currently playing in a strange hybrid way, and that is what it is. Yeah, sub if you want to see more content. Tune into the live streams. Become a member if you want access to VODs and other things. That's all for this one.